So the Central Bank of Yemen has been one of the last standing institutions, one of the very few institutions that were still able to run throughout the conflict, was still able to provide a lifeline by still spending on the salaries, making international payments on time, facilitating trade and imports of key basic commodities into the country. And unfortunately, as the war took much longer than everyone initially expected, the reserves of the central bank started running. No revenues were flowing in because of the stop of the export of oil and because of the ongoing fighting all over the country. And so gradually and over the months, the bank started getting into a danger zone. And we were hoping to still have maintain the structures that were there, maintain the operations that were there. But unfortunately, due to the ongoing conflict, due to the political positions on all sides, the government in Riyadh, the Yemeni government in Riyadh, decided to go ahead and issue a decision to move the central bank to Aden, to replace the governing board of the central bank. In effect, breaking, I would say, the central bank structure that was standing there in Sana'a. Now, the effect of that move is that currently there is no clarity on who maintains authority, especially internationally, who is authorized to sign on international transactions, to have access to foreign reserves, and internally as well, who has the authority to manage the commercial banking sector, to maintain the monetary policies inside the country. And until now, we have not been able to reach a position where that is figured out. That unfortunately will probably continue for some time until there is either an agreement among the sides on a coordinated process, or unfortunately we will be facing much darker times, and the people who will pay and will suffer for that are the people of Yemen. And as we saw, the signs of that have already started: the famine, the starvation, the hunger that is across the country. People in Yemen lost a lot of their sources of income. Millions and millions of people, whether the ones who were dependent on social welfare transfers, those are the poorest of the poor, that has stopped for almost 2 years now. Whether it is the people who are dependent on private sector jobs that almost disappeared basically because of the conflict, whether it's the farmers who have suffered from not being able to get either the fuel products they need, nor the water resources, nor the seeds, nor any of what they need for their farming. So agriculture in effect has collapsed or on the way to collapsing. And one of the very last lifelines was the public sector salaries, which in Yemen act as basically a social safety net, where we have around over 1.2 million people on the payroll, both on the civil service and the military service. And for those, the only source of income they had were the salaries they're getting from the government. Now, those salaries have stopped being paid. That means that not only those people, but the families that depend on them, on average around 5 to 6 members in a family in Yemen, also don't have access to any income. So that has been ongoing for 2 months now. We're now in the 3rd month, and that is will get worse if that solution is not in place. So one thing to address this crisis in the immediate term is to make sure that the central bank, no matter which central bank gets a deposit, gets access to new foreign currency from the regional and international partners that can sustain the operations of the central bank, that can maintain the flow of imports, that can prop up the currency. And on the other side, another priority is to coordinate, find a way to coordinate between the different central banks that are now emerging, and make sure that there is an accepted way of operating across them that would serve the people of Yemen. Now, the third priority would be to get some local currency, because as well we have had a huge liquidity crunch, meaning there isn't available local currency to pay salaries. And so a priority is to get that as soon as possible.